Deborah Norville tonight.
10 felony counts. Act 2 for Michael Jackson.
From Studio 3K in Rockefeller Center, Deborah Norville.
For the next hour, we're going to focus on all the aspects of the Michael Jackson arraignment, what it means, what's ahead, how this affects his career, a look at the fans who flocked to the courthouse, and a lot more. And joining me now is Court TV's investigative reporter Diane Diamond, who's been following the Michael Jackson case ever since the beginning. She originally broke the story. Also with us tonight, John Patrick Dolan, a California criminal defense attorney who is close to Michael Jackson's new legal defense team, and we welcome you both to us this evening. Diane, let me start with you first. How were these charges, which are certainly more serious than the ones that were filed before, including this conspiracy charge, regarded by the Jackson team?
Well, I think there is a sobering in the Jackson team now. As you mentioned at the top, there was no dancing on the SUV. There was no arriving 40 minutes late. He arrived 40 minutes early, for goodness sakes. I think the inclusion of Tom Mesereau at the top of the defense team now has brought a whole new attitude. And you saw it in the courtroom. You saw completely different Michael Jackson come into the courtroom today. He had a smile on his face. He was dressed conservatively, even had a pair of specs on, maybe to look more intelligent. I don't know, maybe it was a fashion statement, but I think they know that it is a very serious thing that they're facing now. As they sat in that room, Deborah, they had no idea what this indictment was going to be. Tom Mesereau signed on to do a child molestation case. Now he's got a big conspiracy case on his hands as well.
Was there any visible reaction when the conspiracy charge was read in court, Diane?
Well, yes, especially among those of us in the media section of the court. There were some intakes of breath. You know, we had not heard anything official about a conspiracy charge, a conspiracy for child abduction, false imprisonment, and extortion. These were not charges included in Tom Sneddon's original 9 charges. So it seeped into us as we sat in the courtroom that once you bring up a conspiracy under California law, Deborah, that opens up the hearsay rule, which means the district attorney can bring up all sorts of statements and all sorts of acts into the courtroom that he might otherwise not have been able to bring up. So it really presents Team Mesereau with a much bigger problem than they thought they had when they walked in here today.
Let's talk about the legal future with you, John Patrick Dolan. Let's go through count by count the counts that were revealed today. Starting first was the 1 count of conspiracy to commit child abduction, false imprisonment, and extortion. 28 separate acts included in that. What is the significance of that particular count? Because as Diane said, that was the shocker to everybody today.
Well, I don't think it's quite as bad as it's been made out to be, but I will tell you Diane was right on point. The reason this kind of count is added to a case like this is because you can get around the hearsay rule and you can start bringing in statements that were made outside of the presence of the courtroom or by witnesses outside of court, and it allows them to sort of prop up their case. But I would say this, the fact that there's still just 1 victim in this case suggests that this case isn't as bad as everybody thought it might be. But there was some rumor going around that there may be additional victims, and that would have made it a much more difficult case.
Let's look at the rest of the counts again. There were originally 2 counts of giving an intoxicating agent to a child. That's now been increased to 4 counts of administering an intoxicating agent. Obviously, there was more evidence introduced in the grand jury than the district attorney had when he first lodged his charges.
Well, you're absolutely right. However, if you want to look at it on the other counts, there were originally 7 counts of the 288 parentheses A, which have now been reduced to 4 counts of the 288.
That would be lewd acts upon a child.
Exactly. And I'm sorry, we always talk in penal codes in
California. Yeah, we're going to talk people talk here.
And then 1 count of an attempted lewd act on a child. So there's actually 3 less charges, felony charges of the lewd conduct, and then 1 additional attempted lewd conduct. But you are right that now there are 4 charges of the administering intoxicating liquor. And I think this is probably based on the grand jury heard testimony and then made the indictment tailored to the facts that they heard presented to the grand jury, which were different than what were presented in the complaint.
Diane.
You know, Deborah, I think that that's a very important point to make. I'll talk you some people talk here. You know, you always hear about, oh, well, you can indict a ham sandwich. This jury did not rubber stamp what Tom Sneddon had already filed, the 9 felony counts, as your other guest has just pointed out. They didn't just take it verbatim. They've added more charges for the alcohol or the intoxicating agents, fewer for lewd and lascivious, but boy, they went for that big umbrella conspiracy. And,
well, let me ask you,
again, I think is going to be the hardest.
With whom do they allege or do we suspect Michael Jackson was conspiring? Because the charges remain sealed. Even the defense has not had a chance to see the specifics of the evidence presented to the grand jury.
Well,
exactly. They'll get those transcripts on Monday. But let me tell you something. In this indictment here that we got today, and it's redacted, parts are taken out. What is taken out, you can see, are names. They didn't say, and Michael Jackson and unindicted co-conspirators, you wouldn't have had to erase that. They erase names. Other people are mentioned in this. We just don't know those names yet. I can tell you there are 4 people that used to be in the Jackson camp that have hired lawyers and are very worried that it's their names in here. So keep that in mind. Other people are could possibly be on trial here.
Mr. Dolan, this clearly ratchets up the case as far as Team Mesereau and his associates are concerned for Michael Jackson.
Well, it does, and you should know that the Mesereau team did get to see who the other people were that were indicted. However, in deference to those people who weren't present in court, they asked that those names be redacted. But we will find out soon enough because those people will have to be brought in for an arraignment. And it does open up what's going to happen.
Indicted. I'm going to just jump in here and tell you they were not indicted. They were named here, but they were not indicted, which makes me think they were named here so the district attorney can go to their attorneys and start to squeeze them for information. If they don't cough it up, then they can be indicted.
You agree with that, Mr. Dolan, that there are individuals that clearly the prosecution would like to bring over to their side of the table and speak on their behalf against Michael Jackson, and you think those are the names in this indictment?
Yes, I think those are the names. I can't tell from the copy of the indictment I have. It doesn't say that they're unindicted co-conspirators because it's redacted. But I can tell you this. Probably what is going to happen is the district attorney's office is going to reach out to these people and see if they can make a plea agreement with them so that they can avoid any serious consequences in return for testimony. But I don't think that's going to happen with the people. If I understand who the people are, and I've only heard some rumors, I don't think that's going to happen here.
We obviously have no idea what the evidence is going to be against Michael Jackson, but I wonder, in going forward, what do you suspect, Diane, some of the evidence will be presented in court? I mean, for instance, there was the Martin Bashir documentary in which Michael Jackson was clearly holding hands with the boy who later became the individual at the center of this case. Is it conceivable that that would be played for a jury in court?
Oh, you can bet your last dollar on that, because on that documentary, Michael Jackson openly talks about sleeping with children and what is wrong with that. So I'm sure that that will be part of what's shown to them. We know they took items from Neverland, including videotapes, computer hard drives. The child, the accuser in this case, was given a laptop that he claims he and Michael Jackson looked up pornography on. There were other houses that also had search warrants on them.
And one of those houses was the man who, right, he does gay pornographic films. He worked with Michael Jackson on a video that ultimately was never released. His home was searched and items were removed. Evidence that will be presented in trial?
Absolutely.
I don't think so.
In fact, I am told by sources, I'm told by sources very close to this investigation that Mark Schaffel is the pornographer you're talking about, was very organized. He was very anal in what he saved, is the way they put it to me, and he had files upon files and hard drive files that are just opening up all sorts of avenues for investigation.
Mr. Dolan, I want to let you to respond because I know you believe quite differently on that score.
Well, yeah, my expertise is in the courtroom where we actually deal with the evidence code and what happens when a trial actually takes place. And in the reality of trial, the only way that any of those things that have just been described would be relevant would be if they tend to show something about Michael Jackson's intent and do not prejudice the jury in a way that would be more serious than the probative value they offer. And so there's going to be serious pretrial motions and 402 hearings, we call them, during the trial in limine hearings regarding what can come in as to that particular issue of his intent. And that's what this is all about. It's Michael Jackson's intent.
Well, we're going to get into some of the steps that will be to come. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Michael Jackson's got a new look, a new attitude, a new lawyer. Will it help his legal future? That and more in a moment.
Coming up, conspiracy to commit child abduction, false imprisonment, and extortion. What does this new charge mean for Michael and his defense team?
This defense is going to be conducted with professionalism and dignity at all times.
More from inside the courtroom when Deborah Norville Tonight returns.